Oh, man. Oh, you won't believe that. I've been talking to myself. Hello, Roderick. How are you doing? Apparently, I needed to click that button twice. I'm a professional. So, hopefully, you can hear me. Hopefully, if I play something, you can hear those lovely trombones. But also, hopefully, if I've got it set up correctly this evening, if I play something and I continue talking, you should be able to hear me over the rest of the music. Now, you may have to adjust your headphones when we play music. It can, especially before we master it and things like that, we do actually end up with a lot of frequencies being played, so you may have to turn your headphones down from when they normally are. Mikey's fingers! Yes, this took me quite a while to set up today, I won't lie, but I really wanted to do a stream this evening, and I've been playing around with music a bit recently, so yes, I was using my very small keyboard, which is stuck over there at the moment. Hold on a second. Please don't play a sound. All right, there we go. So yeah, I was playing with my small keyboard, which I seem to have Akai professional stuff. I think that's just luck more than anything else. But I've got this really small keyboard. It's brilliant. It pairs with things like iPhones, iPads through Bluetooth, and it's really low latency to those. So it's great as a portable thing. But playing around this evening, I really wanted to be able to play both the highs and the lows. So you can't really do that on that. You can't play the bass part and the top part at the same time. And as we're exploring the music this evening, hopefully it will be worth it having the much bigger keyboard in front of us. Also stops my fat fingers just pressing multiple keys at once. Anyway, I've got nowhere to chuck this. The floor. There we go. Cool. That was a nice soft carpet, by the way, not a hard floor. Hopefully you can all hear me. Can you all hear me? And can you all hear the lovely instruments? Like so. I mean, it's showing on my screen, but I really hope you can hear. Otherwise, I have to pause it and fiddle. I hope it's all working. Awesome. Good evening, Mindstammer, as well. Yes, we're going to play around this evening. I'm going to start with, like, a little motif, a little idea that we can build upon. This is often the way that I go about composing music generally. There's not going to be much of a plan this evening. I'm just going to play around. If you guys have any questions as we go through, feel free to ask away. If I'm deep in the music, I might not actually spot the question, first of all. But otherwise, yeah, I think we should start cracking on. So when it comes to idea generation, where do you start? It's difficult, and I personally, I learnt the piano from when I was about 10 years old onwards, and I got to a reasonable level. I got to about grade 7, but I'm rubbish at sight reading. Could never read music. I kind of listened to it and played it back. I think that's helped me a lot later on if I'm starting to play around with ideas, because I've been naturally experimenting throughout, and so I kind of have this approach when I'm playing around with music. I literally just jab at the keys, and I know that's easy to say as someone with a bit more music experience. However, you do sometimes come up with, as good old Bob Ross said, happy accidents as you're playing. And so sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down and not being too complex about ideas. I was playing around just before the stream, getting everything going. So I think I've got an idea for just 4 notes, and we can build upon that, and there'll be more notes, obviously, afterwards. But I was just playing in the middle of the keyboard, and I might turn that down a little so I can hear myself as well. Something about those notes. I was actually playing on my piano in the other room. I'd love to have done that in the other room, but I realised carting half my setup through to the other room just was not practical. So I'm sat here at the moment. In front of us, this bit of software in front of us is called FL Studio. I've been playing around with this ever since I was, I don't know, FL Studio used to be called Fruity Loops, and I had it when it was called Fruity Loops. We've got courses on the site, of course, covering free things like ARDA and LMMS. Pretty much the same sort of setup. We're not going to do too much in the way of complexity. I mean, FL Studio does do a ton of other things. Also, during here, I'm mainly going to be using, let's just click on one of these and it'll open up on the other screen. I'll drag it across. I'm mainly going to be using this plugin. So we're going to go for a more orchestral sound today. And this plugin is Spitfire Symphony Orchestra, the BBC Symphony Orchestra. And this is the free one. So this is zero cost. You could easily use it with LMMS or ARDA or any digital audio workstation of your choice, which is really awesome. And it's just got a selection of orchestra. They've got a much more expensive version. I think it's like £500. This is one of these hobbies that if you get into, like most hobbies, you can sink a ton of money into. So I will occasionally be adjusting things, maybe off screen. I've populated a couple of tracks here, so you can see that we've got hopefully you can see we've got a harp and piano at the top, and then a marimba, and then they're all sorts of out of orders. I've just been dumping some instruments that might be cool to play with. So I've just got these multiple tracks. The main reason for setting that up before the stream is so that I can load them all in, because it does take a while to load them occasionally. Excuse me. Lums, yes, happy accident. Bob Rossing the music tonight, definitely. Good evening, Vertex. I used to do fast track. Oh, tracker music, absolutely amazing. I think one of the I think Deus Ex, the original game, that was all tracker music as well. Absolutely phenomenal. Really going back to the old school gaming music. But today will be a bit more orchestral, as you can see by the selection. So I tend to pick a more interesting instrument. Sometimes instruments themselves can generate ideas. So if you've got, I don't know, the bass trombone here. I mean, you can already start to maybe think of some quirky stuff going on with that. I don't usually start with instruments as an idea, but some instruments do foster certain feelings and emotions. Certainly, if you start playing around with strings, it can be more flowing, more romantic, more serene. But that's not always the case, because if we get some strings here, that's like a really nice serene part in a film or something along those lines. But then you've got the, if you really go harsh with the strings, you can... So you can really change it up just with the same instruments, which is so much fun. But usually, I'll get to the point now. Usually I start with something that's easier to hear all the different notes, because if you play something like strings or brass, it can get very overwhelming very quickly. Things can get lost. Whereas if you pick something like a piano, so I've got a piano sound here. Or something also quite short. I quite like the marimba sound that comes with the free BBC Orchestra. So, and you can see here also one of the reasons why I wanted this bigger keyboard. I'd love the piano, so I could go to the real extremes either end. But just being able to put some bass notes in there as well as you're playing around can help flesh out an idea. And sometimes you can have the chords stay the same. So here's a C minor chord, and you can have the bass move around. So and I might play around with that sort of idea tonight with a bass that moves around, but something maintaining the same higher up. So there's lots and lots of ideas that you can play with when it comes to music. And I think we're going to start with those notes there and see where we can go with that. Now, when I'm playing with FL Studio or many of the other DAWs, they'll have some sort of looping functionality. So once you've laid down an idea, you can pause, come back, and add to it. And that's really useful. The other thing when it comes to music is it tends to be repetitious. So I'm giving you that warning now that we may end up repeating ourselves a few times as we develop ideas. And finally, I always play with a metronome. So I've removed the really annoying sort of wooden block sound that comes through. However, if you feel that the metronome might be a bit too loud and a bit too grating, I've changed it to a hi-hat sound. I can certainly tone that down a little as well. I'm not sure what track I put that on. So this would be what the metronome sounds like. So it's just a hi-hat being struck, and it's yes, it's there, it's present, and it's really as a guidance so I can stay in time, especially with some of the longer instruments. If you've got something that builds up, so I think these filtered strings here, they kind of build up more. The problem with playing those on time is because then when you initially hit the keys, there's not a sound there initially. But then it starts to swell slightly afterwards. So having those in time is very difficult if you've not got a metronome on and you're hitting the keys in the right place. So let's play around with... Now, there's a couple of places we could put that, and again, you can just play around on the keyboard and see what you can make of it. So, well, that's kind of part of. I could shift this to all white keys, but I'm going to keep it as this for the moment. It sounds like it's part of B minor. So I might just shift it down so it's easier to follow if you do want to follow along, either now or later on. If we shift that B minor down a tone, so 2 semitones, we get A minor. So I think we'll shift down there. So instead of going, we'll end up going, and that's much easier. And hopefully then we won't have too many black notes in the way. And now, it's not a complexity thing, and I can always transpose things. That's one of the great things about using a digital orchestra. You can play in one key and just hit a button and transpose it. And sometimes you can get a different sonic quality by just shifting things around a little. And even more importantly, if you've got someone like a singer. So keeping within their range. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to promise I'm not going to sing. I might hum along at some points. But... It's one of those things that you can shift music around so that a vocalist can join in, or perhaps you're going to record your voice and you want something really low down, but it's too low, so you can shift it up a little so you can sing that, or even lower the vocal sound that you've recorded down, although that can sound artificial. Right, so we've got this. And there are several things that you can do with that. Now, one of the great things that's a great starting block is just playing fifths. So we've got the root note here. We've decided that it's kind of A minor. It might not be, but let's say it is for the moment. So if we count 5 white notes up from that, we get our fifth, and we can play that down here. I'm pointing. Hopefully you can see that. So we can play with that, and then we can just play things over and over again and see how they sound. I'm going to separate it out a bit further. Okay, I changed it a bit at the end there, and that's one of the things you can do. You can start with something quite repetitive, and repetition is good until it becomes irritating. And we've probably all heard the songs or bits of music where you have something that's a bit more grating because it keeps going. Freeze frame phrase. Oh, is it frozen? Oh dear. I wonder if it will come back again. So this might be an issue with the Mac and that interface that I'm using. I would just turn it off. Or I could do this one. Oh, I don't know if this will work. Hold on a minute. Oh dear, that's horrible. So you'd see me from this angle, and then I can come and chat to you like this. I think that works. I'll shift to that one for the moment and see if I can kind of frame myself a little better. Yes, that's the laptop's one. Yeah, that's fine. We'll keep it like that for the moment. I think that's my... I've got a Camlink USB that seems to, on the Mac, occasionally freeze, which isn't great. Although that could be OBS. Who knows? New setup, new responsibilities. So you can see there, as I was playing along, I'm just playing... then I just kept walking down to see what things sound like. And there's no problem with that. You can just keep going. Now, that doesn't sound very nice if we just play the B and the F together. Flip it to look at the keyboard. That's why I've got the keyboard underneath. Oh, you want to look at the full keyboard? Is there a way I can easily do that? I think there is. Hold on a minute. This could go horribly wrong, but you know what? I'm up for that type of stream this evening. I think I can... Oh, maybe I can't. Let's see. I think I can actually turn on... No, I can't. Maybe not. I thought for a moment that I could just plug in my phone and show there. I can't really lift the laptop up because it's got lots of wires attached to it at the moment. But what I could do is... grab this and duplicate it, and then I can just zoom out because at the moment I'm zoomed into the camera. So let's have a quick look here. If I duplicate, where is duplicate? And then, because I don't want to ruin the shot I've already got, I can just add it again, can't I? So add video capture device, the C920. I'm using a really old webcam here. So here's the full setup that you can see, and I've got my keyboard just at the top here, very precariously perched. And I was so worried about my monitor getting the basically getting scratched because it's a curved monitor. I've put white tack on the ends of the keyboard. This is super sketch. I'd love one of those studio ones that you can get, studio desks where you've got a little drawer, like a keyboard drawer that pulls out. And there we go. That's that. I'll turn that off for the moment. So this big keyboard here is the Akai MPK49. Oh, there is, if we have a look down here, just in the corner, you can see I broke it at some point. I kicked my keyboard and I used 3 cocktail sticks and super glue to fix it. It still works. I'm happy. I was absolutely livid with myself though when I first did it. I have to remember that you guys are here now and not there, because if I'm talking here, you just see the side of my head. Right. Where were we? Walking along. Now, I just played something there that's not a perfect fifth. So if you count the notes in between the first and the fifth of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's actually 7 notes in total in between. However, this one, there's only 6 notes. So this is a diminished sound, and that diminished can be tension, it can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be used in a variety of ways, but it's not generally associated, not in Western music anyway, with happiness. Typically in Western music, we've got major chords, and they are associated with happiness, well-being, etc. Then you've got your minor chords. They're typically sad or solemn. And this is something we learn. There have been quite a few studies where you've got different musical cultures, and if they hear something minor, they can just perceive it as happy because they've not been taught, so to speak, that it... Oh, you're there, sorry. They've not been taught that it is a happy or a sad or a tense thing. And playing around with this stuff is super easy when you have something like your keyboard in front of you. However, some DAWs have a keyboard mode, so you can actually play with a keyboard. And you just need to hear this. If I turn this overview back on here, got a keyboard at the top here, and you can simply go. Oh, I do need to make sure that I've got the. So there really is no excuse for not playing music when you can use your keyboard as a keyboard. Now, absolutely ages ago, I had a Creative Lab, so we are going back a few years now. It was a keyboard with a MIDI keyboard at the front. It's absolutely amazing. It broke during a move at some point, something dropped on it and it crushed. But yeah, back in the day, that was amazing. It wasn't a very good keyboard in its typing capacity or its playing capacity, but the fact that you could have it all in one place was, well, for me anyways, young me, we are going back a few years, probably in my teens. It was absolutely amazing. So, a question here from Munzer. Seems the beginning of Mary, did you know? It's very easy, and if you've not heard of it, check out the Axis of Awesome. They do this thing with 4 chords. It's a bit of a meme these days. When it comes to the 4 chords, they're talking about... And that is so many pop songs. So yeah, it is very easy to accidentally end up sounding like another piece of music. A few months back, I was playing around with some French horns, and I ended up sounding like a Bond film at some point, just because of the particular chord that I played at the time, and the instrumentation as well. It just all lined up, and I was like, oh, I've managed to make a Bond thing. It happens, and some of these things are completely accidental. Others are inspiration it's gone up into your head, and you don't realise it's there, and you end up repeating it again later on. And of course, what really highlights the similarities between music is recently, you may or may not have heard, Ed Sheeran in court defending why his song sounded like another song. Complete mess. I won't go into the details, but I just realised if I'm talking over here, you're probably a bit quiet over here. How's that? So it's music's all about inspiration and building upon what's come before. So there are lots of things that I've heard before, perhaps things that John Williams has done for or Hans Zimmer, and absolutely phenomenal composers. And then you go back in time a bit more and you start hearing the same sort of things being played, but in a different way. And so music is all built upon previous ideas. Nothing I'm going to do today is going to be particularly remarkable. However, we're going to build up and maybe make a piece from it. I don't know if it'll fit in or whether everybody get bored and wander off. Music is one of those things that just takes some time. It's very much like an art, and so I really enjoy it. It's somewhere that I just disappear to in my mind. Anyway, let's crack on. We are going to use these white notes. I've decided that, and let's try and sort of get something out for the moment. So just going to play around before I record anything. One thing I love on the piano is being able to sort of rock backwards and forwards between some notes. So now notice there I've played that idea that we've got slower. There's no reason why it can't be fast as well. Completely different feelings, same notes. So that's why just keeping it simple and just playing around can ultimately develop into something. Now, let's see if I can record without the whole thing going kaput. Let's... How about lowering down here? So I'm going to keep this E here. If you keep a note on, it's known as, I believe, a pedal note. I think that comes from organ playing back in the day. But we could keep the E there constantly. So we're always going to come back to that E. And then... let's go down. Let's keep going down. So just mixing it up at the end. And I think that's important to maybe mix it up at the end because it tells the listener that that's the end of this musical sentence. We've got this little chat. And then perhaps we can get some other instrumentation to repeat the same pattern. It could be a rhythmical pattern. It could be a melodic pattern. So, yeah, I like that. Let's see where we can go with it. And then we can build and add to it. Another instrument that would be quite nice for this is maybe a harp. But I may add that in later. Right, let's do a little bit of a recording. So... Excellent. So that's come in there. And if we have a look at it, yeah, this is a favourite place of mine, is the piano roll. So the piano roll basically has the piano on the left-hand side here, and we can see all the notes that I've just played in or out of time. And you may have noticed I didn't come in straight at the very beginning here, so I'm going to have to move things back. So let me go ahead and select everything with Control and A or Command and A on a Mac and shift that all the way back. And we can see here that I'm fitting this all into, it's kind of a 4-bar, 8-bar pattern here. Flute. I think flute would work very well. Clarinet is very nice as well, especially if you want something a bit more mellow. A flute, not all flutes, obviously a wooden flute is very mellow. But the flute that I've got access to with the BBC Orchestra Pack is quite a harsh, bright flute, rather than harsh. Harsh is a bit harsh. I've just pressed Control and Q or Command and Q. That's going to quantize my notes. This is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. And the reason why I say it's maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing, is your music can end up sounding very robotic and rigid if you quantize absolutely everything. I'm going to do it this evening. I'm quite cramped. I've got to be close to the microphone so you can hear me, and close to the keyboard. I usually sit quite a distance back, so then my headphones don't fit. Excuses, I know. But for the moment, I will quantize things, and then I will play back and listen to what I've done. I don't want record on at the moment because I don't want to overdub, which is where you put things on top. And let's see how this sounded. Let's go back to the beginning. So I thought that was a bit harsh overall, so I'm going to, with everything highlighted, this bit at the bottom is the velocity, or how hard the keys are being hit, basically. And I'm just going to, with everything still selected, make it really much more mellow. And what we can do here is we could record it. Absolutely fine. We can hit the keys. I'm going to feel lazy. I'm going to select one of these other notes, and then I'll be able to mimic the length of it. And I think that's about right. And I'm going to come down here. Ooh, that's probably a little bit too low. Yeah, there. So we were playing A. We're just going to follow this line down. So A, G, F, and E. A, G, F, and E. And we may remove this from the piano in a bit and add it to a different instrument just to see how it sounds. Let's see how it sounds now. Ooh, do you hear that bass note there? That's, I don't know, it positions it so much better. And it's really soft. Is there a rogue note in there? Nah, I'll leave it as it is for now. Now you notice I stopped oscillating between the notes when I got to this last bit. I think that's nice. I think it tails off slightly before it can start up again. I'm going to come out of the piano roll for the moment, and I'm just going to loop my music. So hopefully it's going to loop around. I just need to test that first of all. I think I closed the bit I wanted, so let's go to here. Yes, it is going to loop round. That's fantastic. Hopefully, and do let me know if for some reason you can't hear me when I'm talking. As I say, it should duck. I can hear everything really loud. So if I start shouting, it's because it's loud up here. Okay. So that's quite nice. We've got this sort of starting point. And of course, one of the things we can do is we can subtract from it as well. So we've got this idea as our pattern. And I do like building things up in a pattern. So I'm going to right click here and rename it. I'm just going to call it piano. What to call it? Piano rocking? No. I'm just going to call it piano. We'll come back to it later with a better name. I hate naming things. It can be so confusing. Although if we end up with making multiple patterns, that can also be confusing if you haven't named things. So I can call this one Piano Soft, actually. I think I'm going to call it Piano Soft. And then we can make it maybe duplicate it. That's one thing we can do. So we can take a copy of what we just had. And now we're playing around with that. Oh, I've scrolled down too far. I'm not on the piano roll anymore. Daft me. Okay, let's go to Piano Soft 2. And then what we can do for this, with an idea of building it up and seeing how you can position things, we could remove all the top bits. Literally right-clicking, dragging, and deleting those. And then we get something that sounds like this. There is a clash. It does sound like there's a clash there. I think two of these notes are playing at the same time. When I quantized, I think it moved it too far. So this one, and then... So it should rock backwards and forwards. Let's try that instead. Yes, yeah, that sounds far, far better. And now we've got the bottom part of the piano. We can go back to our first one. And we could just copy it again and just have the top part. And the reason for doing this is it starts to separate out the low parts from the high parts. So if you're going to start using additional instrumentation, you can divvy up these parts amongst multiple instruments. And that can make the entire piece much fuller than it would have been otherwise. So once again, I'm going to clone this and I'm going to name it. I do need to name this because it's a bit rubbish otherwise. So we've got Piano Soft, which is everything, but I'm going to call this one Piano Soft. Can I rename here? I can. Brilliant. This one is Piano Soft 3 is going to be the upper part, and Piano Soft 2 is going to be the lower part. So if I just rename those upper and... Oh, I've clicked on the wrong one. Have I? I'm confused. Why am I confused? Did I right-click on the wrong thing? Yeah, I think I... Let's just go here, go soft. Okay, so this is going to be the lower one. I'll rename it here. Rename. Piano. Oh dear, typing stretched out. Excuses, I know. Piano. Yeah, excellent. So we've got piano lower, and I haven't actually removed the parts from the upper part, so let's go to upper and remove the bass parts. And then we can start dishing some of these things out or playing melodies over the top of them. And that's another reason for separating them, because this really is the melody part at the top. So you can have that playing along and having maybe... Well, let's try it. Let's have this playing and let's go and grab some brass or some strings, something deep. That was a very powerful P. Okay. So I think we're going to be starting... So this would be down on the E. Let's go lower. And now we don't have the bass part of the piano kind of in the way. We can experiment with different instrumentation. Oh, I've gone too low and I've changed the keying. Okay, so just to explain that, some of these instruments have switches on them, so that no longer sounds like strings, even though it should be. And that's because some of these keys, all the way down here, when I've lowered the octaves several times by accident, because I wasn't paying attention, I've changed the instrument. So I need to find where those keys are. It's this set here, or if I go up a level, if I tap and hold, it stays. Okay, so I think that's the one I want. Oh, spooky. Okay, that's the one I want. I've got to watch if I go down low. Okay, so let's just try that again. So you can see how you can build things up. And this is an approach I often take when it comes to any musical production, is how can I build things up to maybe a grand place and then just drop back down again and build up again. And it does depend on what you're composing for as well. At the moment, we are just playing around, having a laugh. There's no end goal. However, if you're trying to make music for a dungeon scene, or you're trying to make music perhaps for a menu, it's going to be different than making music for the overworld where you're running around and frolicking with nature. So this is one of the things to take into consideration. So I'm going to play around with, I mentioned a clarinet earlier, Munster, so let's play with a clarinet and just see if we can put something. Let's do the lower piano as well. So you can see there how you can really slow it down, perhaps even a different set of notes, but similar to the ones before. So you're almost mirroring, repeating, almost like a call and response. Now, I wonder if that works over the top of everything else. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the upper part. So let's switch to that. So piano upper. Hello. There we go. Yeah, piano upper. And let's just keep the top bit. So that's... Now, I can't keep it just as it is for something like a flute, because a flute is a continuous sound, unless I use a staccato flute, which is very sharp. So I will have what's here, and then I'll copy that. And we're going to create a new part. In fact, I'm going to call this flute melody. And let's come out. Let's go back to the upper part, and what I can do here is I can select this like so and copy it, and then I can go to that flute part. It's just here. Oh, that doesn't switch to it. Interesting. I'll leave this bit on the side. I saw it earlier and I was wondering, oh, could I use that? No, I'll leave it for now. Then I can paste that in. And then I can come into it. We don't want the bottom bit all the time. That bit we're always returning to. And we don't want all the notes to be this long. It's a bit more tidying up than I thought it was going to be. So give me a moment. Da, 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 da. Ya, da, da. And because this repeats itself, I can probably... And I will need to move this to the flute part in a second. So I can grab what we have here. I need to remember what the shortcut key is for select everything. I thought it was shift. Oh dear. Oh, there we go. That's for zooming in and that's for selecting. Okay, perfect. So now I've got that. If I hold down shift, it will copy across in this program. There we go. And then I just need to sort out these last bits here. That's gone really chunky in the vertical axis. I kind of like it. I dig it. And it goes up like so. Now this is in the wrong part at the moment. This is being played on the piano. We want to see how it sounds on the flute. It might need to actually be a bit higher as well for the flute. So let's cut that and paste it over to the flutes. And let's see how this sounds when put together. So we're going to have to do a bit of arranging now. We've got our parts separately. And what we can do is we can start basically pasting them in. So we can draw these parts. So there's piano lower. And then we've got another one here. That's not snapping at the moment. Let's turn snapping on to the bar. There we go. Perfect. So this will repeat that pattern 4 times. And I'm going to zoom out ever so slightly so we can see it. And then the flute melody. Let's see how it sounds on top. That definitely needs to be longer here. And I think it probably needs to be higher as well. So I'm going to select it all. I need more vertical space here. Is this the vertical space? There we go. And so I'm going to shift this up 1 octave. So I'm just going to drag all those notes all the way up. Just play that again. This might be a bit shrill, so I'll get ready to turn it down. Instruments like the flutes, they pierce a lot of the orchestra. So I'm going to turn it down before I play it, actually, and then and we'll turn it up if it needs it. Nice, nice. And then let's perhaps play with that clarinet from earlier. Now, this may sound messy. That's fine. Trying to sometimes put 2 melodies, so a melody and a counter melody on top of one another, can often end up with clashes. Sometimes you end up with the happy accidents that we mentioned earlier. Other times they just clash and sound horrible. So perhaps we'd need to change the pacing of one of the instruments, or maybe take it in turns. So we've got the flute going up and down, then perhaps the clarinet plays something. Perhaps it goes down and up in response. But we'll just play and see what we get. Yeah, I think there's not space in here for the flute and the clarinet with what I'm playing at the moment to actually have space. So I'm going to remove that middle bit, and then we'll work out something at the end here that they can play together in unison. And then we'll play around with some other instrumentation as well. So let's come out of that. And so our flute's going to play something. Then we're going to have space, but I do want to have the song view up, so I can have this in several times. So it's not just the once. We can practice each time round and just play something different and see what we come up with. Now let's select the clarinets, press record, let's go. That sounded all right, didn't it? Let's see. It's put these parts together, which is absolutely fine. But it does mean now that we've got... Oh, I did something. There's an automation there. So we've actually got the flute melody here and the clarinet melody on top of one another. I want a bit more separation, so I'm going to separate them out right now, rather than leaving it till later. So we've got a clarinet part here. I'm going to quantize that, as I said I would, and then I just need to separate it, and that's probably best done here. I can literally cut this and go to the next part. This is going to be a clarinet counter. I'll keep it as that for the moment, and then paste that in. And then I do need to go back to sort of like the arrangement view here and pop the counter melody in. And having a look at this, we could actually play it without the flute and just see how that sounds. Maybe with the piano upper being played as well. Not every time. Let's just play it towards the end here. Let's see how that sounds. Now, that to me sounds like it's missing something, right? It sounds like it's missing the call. So let's just add the flute in. I like that, but it sounds like it's missing something. Let's see if we can add a bit more to it from there. And I know the piano is quite quiet here as well, so the rest of the instruments are going to be comparatively loud to it. Let's go in and play with perhaps some strings. Let's really start to build this up. So we've got this Oh, that's quite loud. Let's turn that down so if nothing else, I can hear myself. I think that adds quite a bit to it. If we could get some strings lower down, so it's not just the piano that's got that presence lower down, but some strings as well. Let's just add it. So I'm going to create a new pattern. I'm going to call this strings. There we go. Bass, perhaps something like that. And does this go low enough? No, I was playing it. I do want that the counter bass, the double bass is playing as well. Take it really down low. There we go. Now, that's starting immediately when I want to play a note, and there's an option. I do need my metronome on, but there's also an option to do a countdown so it doesn't just start. Hello, Chips Treasure. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are having fun putting together a piece of music at the moment. Just. Nice. So, oh, did I lose everything? No, I didn't. I just shut down the window. So we've got this string bass here. Am I tapping my foot on the pedal down here? Is that what this control is that I'm adding? I'm adding something. Oh, aftertouch. I didn't know my keyboard had that. There we go. Just ignore me. That's me articulating on the keyboard. Nice. I've learned something about my own hardware this evening. I didn't realise I had. Right. Let's hear what we just played back again. You often have to do this because when you're playing something, it can sound maybe, I'm going to say good, but when you listen to it back, you're like, actually, no. But the great thing about doing something digitally is you can go, well, I know why that sounds rubbish. It's because I played the wrong note, and you just move the notes. There's no need to re-record all the time. So let's have a look at the bass part here. I'm not sure about the notes that I actually used here, to be honest. So let's quantize it. Like I said before, you'll notice here I played the last ones a little bit early, so I'm going to shift those forward to the right place. Right, let's hear how this sounds. Yeah, I don't like that minor start to it, so I'm going to open that up, take it up to the E and try again. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Now, we could have a few transition notes. Everything at the moment is very sort of on the beats, and that can be boring because it's like talking like this. I think I got my point across there. So we could add a few transition notes as well. So instead of just stepping down and plodding along, we can perhaps move up again here, ready for this E again if we're going to play that. So it comes down, it goes from this E. I quite like that idea of a little run up here. I'm not sure. Okay, that was actually a lot sharper and fast towards the end. That's a great question, Roderick. Yeah, the clarinet part needs a lot more. I'm gesturing over here. I'm covering your faces. Yeah, the clarinet part needs something more, definitely. We can build upon that. Great idea. And what keyboard would you recommend to a newbie? Any. I would recommend getting full-sized keys if you've got medium to large hands. I've always struggled on the smaller keyboard. I'm not going to pick it up off the floor now. But as I mentioned earlier, you can just use, and I have done several pieces, just using, where's the camera? Just using a keyboard, right? It doesn't have to have rainbow vomits on it either. But yeah, you can, I mean, yeah, okay. I'm going to prove a point here, or not. Let's try not to drop it. I'm going to use this to do my next instrumentation. Reap what you... Oh, no. What have I done? Hold on. Let's not have everything selected while I'm dragging. So yeah, I'm going to do the next bit on an actual typing keyboard. Why not? I mean, I've got to eat my own words sometimes, haven't I? So I need to find out where these notes are, so that will take a few moments. And I'm going to repeat this string bass over and over again. And I think Munzer was right about this clarinet part. So let's just see what we've got at the moment. Chips. This is FL Studio. It's absolutely amazing. I've been using FL Studio since it was Fruity Loops, and then I think they had to change the name because of the cereal or something. But this is FL Studio. I'm not using any of the real features of FL Studio, so you could pretty much use any digital audio workstation, LMMS, ARDA, GarageBand, Logic Pro X, Cubase, Cakewalk. Does that still exist? I think it's BandLab now. Ableton, and I'm not just going to list off more doors. We're not really using any of the big features that FL Studio would come with. And one of the things about FL Studio that I actually really like is it is totally free, and you can get the full version totally free. You just can't open up something you've saved. So I used FL Studio for ages until I could afford it, and I used to save my work and export it as a WAV file, and then at the end I joined it all back up as WAV files. I can't remember the technical term for doing that. Bouncing. When computer hardware wasn't that quick and we couldn't have all these instruments, what we'd have to do is it still has the functionality here. We can quick render as an audio clip. And what that does is it renders out the audio clip, makes a funny sound afterwards, and then I don't know where it puts it actually. Because I very rarely use this feature. Audio, there we go. We've got the string-based audio. It's on an audio track, and it's just called the same thing, which is why I didn't spot it. But there we go. We've now got actual audio rather than MIDI notes, and the problem with that is it's finalized. That we can't go back and edit it. However, the benefit of it is this will use so few resources. So it's basically the same as baking textures or a light map in a game engine. There's lots of ways of approaching doing this, and hopefully, did that remove my notes? It might have done. No, they're still there as well. Okay, awesome. I'm not sure where I am at the moment. I'm going to turn off the flute, and I'm just going to listen to this clarinet. As I said before, I think Munzer's right here. I think we can approach the clarinet in a slightly different way. I think it can have some holding notes. I don't want it to be the star of the show by any stretch of imagination. I'm just going to draw some stuff in and see how this works. So this is definitely going to be on the A. I said I was going to play it on the keyboard next. I'll do that in a moment. Oh, hold on. I'll do it in a moment. I'm going to draw it in. I'm avoiding using this keyboard, aren't I, after saying that you just need a keyboard. So let's listen to this. And I'm adjusting the second one. Nice. I was like, why can't I hear it? again, I don't want it plodding along like that, so I'm going to do those transition notes that we talked about earlier with the bass. I could use a similar thing right here. So now we've got... Again, maybe that can change so it's not da 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 da. Rhythmical elements are really important. They can change the entire feel of a piece, and I think what you were getting at there with the claret part needs something more. Is it just needs a bit more variety as it's very plodding along. But getting those original notes down wasn't a mistake. It's a great way of building upon it. Now that I've got these notes, I've got a framework, a skeleton that we can build upon. Let's continue going through here and just seeing what else we can add. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a new part, and I'm going to call it, clarinet. I'm going to call it keyboard. I'm just going to try and play it on here. So I believe Q is a C. So an A is here. So this is going to be a little bit challenging because I've got to move from here. If I want to hit that E, I've got to go to an E. Okay, it's easy to remember. The E is on the E. Let's just play and literally play along for the moment. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, that was a bit different, and I think I fumbled one note there, but there you go. You can use a keyboard to play. So there's no excuse. It's a bit like, well, actually, a drawing tablet is very useful when you start doing actual drawing and stuff, but you can certainly do a lot in Blender with your mouse. And you can do quite a bit on the keyboard as well. And I'm not sure whether my keyboard's not velocity sensitive, yet it sounded like one of the notes was certainly louder than the others, but we can see here. And this is perhaps the downside of using a normal keyboard. I believe there are some out there that have some sort of force feedback type stuff, but this is all at the same volume. But you know what? That doesn't matter, because what I can do here, I'm just going to put in a holding note at the beginning there. We can just come in and draw. There's no reason why we can't come in here and say, well, we want it to start quiet. If you right click here, we can just literally draw a line and maybe get mellow down here and then get loud again, like so. And I think there was a B along here somewhere that just sounded horrible. That's the thing, right? You reach for the tool you're most comfortable with. I'm very comfortable. This is how I did all of my music way back. I just sat in front of a piano roll like this and just clicked. And it's slow, right? It's slow. It's very precise, but it is very slow. And so that's why I opted to just use the keyboard at this point in time to see if we could be a bit quicker about it. So I'm not sure where that horrible note was. It might have been there, but let's just listen to what I managed to play on just the keyboard. And I do want to go back to this main thing here. I want to remove the counter that was here before. So we're just hearing the main part that we've been working on. I joined in halfway through, didn't I? And I think it should be like that. I'm really confused now. I joined in halfway through a phrase rather than at the beginning. Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay, so there's a double note there that I want to remove. And this is the great thing about the piano roll. I can just come in and go, nope, that bit there was wrong. And I'm not sure where we were on this. So that A that I put on there, that first note, is horrible because it's not an A being played at the moment. An E would have worked fine, but it's actually a G that's being played. So I'm going to, again, put a little bit of a lead up here. I'm going to go the E, the G, just for a short bit and see how that sounds. Okay, that's coming along really, really well. And I don't know, how are you guys feeling for time at the moment? I've just clocked that we've been going for about an hour so far. I'm still really enjoying myself, and I do want to sort of switch gears slightly and rather than just me staring at the screen, because it's a very long process. I don't have all evening, I will say that. But what I do want to do is show you some of the other things that I've made with this sort of pattern. And I think I'll switch over. I'll save what we've done so far, and I'll switch over to that so you can see some other types of things. Now, this is Idea Spat 2, I believe. And let's open up Idea Spat 1. So one of the things I often do is just chuck lots and lots of ideas down in one file. It'd be the equivalent in Blender of just modeling several items in a scene all in one place. Here we go. So this is a series of just ideas, and I just want to show you that you can put all of these ideas together, like you can see in front of us here, or you can just keep them as separate patterns and ideas. And a lot of this here is some of the sort of dungeon-esque style a bit of music that is going to be in the Action RPG music pack. And this was inspired by some of the original music, where we have sort of a marimba almost playing along to the idea of the skeletons. I didn't go quite as far as a xylophone for it, but we've got a marimba playing. Same instrumentation that I've been playing with before. This is where I got the list of instruments from. I basically copied all that and deleted all the patterns out of the way. So I've got a sort of a template of instrumentation. That can be important if you're creating a series of music that's supposed to fit together. Having the same or similar instrumentation and not drastically different is quite important for keeping things as one. But yes, we've got a series of different themes here. And then I want to play the very last one, which is similar to what we've been working on this evening. However, a bit more fleshed out, a couple of more hours spent on it, and a bit more idea development. So this is with a harp sound playing. And there is something that I am using here that comes with FL Studio, which is its delay. So you can hear that this instrument has sort of an echo to it. And I realised I probably wouldn't shout if I had one of my headphones off. So that was just an idea of a chord pattern, basically, and nothing else. Just building up from a chord pattern and moving on from there. And that sort of thing can obviously develop into more things. But I'm going to skip to the second pattern now. There we go. And this is a very simple... I believe this is... Oh, what's this? Is this just a beat? Yeah, that's just a beat. Let's move on to pattern 3. Okay, so this is one of the ideas for sort of the marimba, the skeleton type thematic development. So let's listen to this. And this actually follows the previous chords as well. So those would actually gel together. And they've been separated out afterwards. Let's have a look at the next pattern. Okay. I really loved this as more of an eerie setting. Its instrumentation is actually a lot different from the orchestral stuff that we're doing. This is a chill guitar, as I've called it. And it might come across a bit loud, so I'm going to turn it down just a little, and let's hear how this sounds. This is more for maybe a menu scene or something along those lines, or just a really chill, very slow, quiet piece in the background. It's just a simple arpeggio. You can actually hear I've played with two different ideas there, because we have it where it drops back down, it plays those 3 notes. And then we just have it the plain, so just the 3 notes. And you could just loop that round. That is a strong enough idea in itself, I think, that it could just continue on and on. There's enough there. And obviously after a while it would start to get very repetitive. But if it's in the background, will it? A lot of the music that's in the background needs to be repetitive because you're often looping it. So, something to think about. Let's see what's on pattern 5. So another idea here is it's just going up and down a scale. More of an arpeggio, so jumping between the notes of a chord. And then if we go on to... This is another variation on it. So just building up that idea. We've got a flute motif here. So one of the things you'll notice here is, or you may notice, you may not, is that we've got the flutes, and the flutes, a variation on the flutes. So the way that a flute can be played very short and sharp, and you'll notice it changes between those two. And I think that really helps bring out the piece, because you're playing short, sharp notes with technically the same instrument in real life, but played differently. So I've got these 2 patches, and I just switch the melody between those 2 patches. And you can do that with a lot of instruments, especially if they've got alternative voicings. Just like on a violin or something, you can bow it. You can then hit the strings really hard with the bow, or you can do short, sharp, or you can even pluck the bow. And if you don't have the means to switch between those different voicings, you can just have different instruments and switch between them by just moving the part around on the piano roll, as we were doing earlier. As you can see, I've been brilliant with my naming here. Low Chugs. I mean, is that going to be like a metal piece, Mike? What am I thinking of there? Anyway, what's this one? Pattern 8. So that's a really interesting one. That's a voicing that can go over the top of something else, and it's just meant to be there to have a little bit of a build up or something else in the background. And I actually like how this piece comes together, and I will get to the full piece in a moment. That's a very similar thing. I wish I'd named these now. It'd be much easier to talk about them. And this again is a very similar thing. So you've got multiple instruments all playing the same melody. And that can end up with it can be very overwhelming, but used sparingly, it can bring everything together. And in this particular case, I end up doing it on one set of instruments and then coming over and doing it on another set of instruments, quieter instruments. So you've got the brass going da 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 da, and then the clarinet and flutes in this case repeating that, but in a much subtler way. Let's see what we've got on pattern 10. Oh, tutti. Interesting. I don't think this has got anything to do with the rest of the piece. I think this is just, I've got this idea of sort of a fanfare. So I jotted it down. This is really a cacophony. I was hoping we would jump backwards and forwards a bit between different ideas as I'm putting things together. So this is again the harp. And that would go really well together with the guitar we had earlier. I think it's actually an accompaniment for that. So you can see here, I've got that rocking motion that I talked about earlier. But it's for the background. It's not a main feature. Good old chords. I'm not going to play those at the moment. They're just the chords following the pattern rocking backwards and forwards. Some really deep brass, so you can really bring things together. And I think we've just got different instrumentations. Here we've got short, sharp bass notes. I actually moved this earlier, so I know that's going to be a mistake. This needs to be part of the tuba. I'll add it there as well now. Low chugs. Okay. I've called them chugs, but they're string stabs, so really sharp. Used effectively, that can be really useful. This is interesting. So very much like, that's a very simple horror riff there. What are we doing there? We are going... I'm going to use my keyboard again, the real one. Let's move this out of the way. So we're doing... Oh, that's loud. Oh, it's just a... So that's just moving... That's a used effectively, that can be really useful in anything horror-wise. I've got something called heartbeat. I bet you'll never guess what heartbeat is going to be. It's going to be like a big bass drum or something going dum-dum, or something along those lines. Yeah. Of course it is. A crash. Okay, so these are just single shots. So one of the things that you can do is you're putting things and you're arranging your music together. So you've come up with all your ideas, you start putting them together. One of the great things about building up around a theme or a pattern is that you can make a very long piece like this. I think this is about 3 minutes or so in length. I will play the full thing and I will not interrupt it if that's what you guys want, or we can chat through it. But one of the things that I wanted to point out here was you've got individual parts here that are just like a crash or something along those lines. So this is one of the ideas that's almost put together completely. In fact, it loops perfectly for the action RPG, and this is one of the dungeon pieces of music. I will press play, and if you guys have any questions as we're starting to get towards the end of the stream, do ask now, and then I'll play you another piece which is similar to what we've been working on this evening. I'm going to press play now and I'm going to listen rather than speak. And you can see there the way that it has sort of like calmed right down. There's some more to add to this. It's almost at its final point. But you can see there as it toned down, the whole idea was this would be a loopable piece. Essentially, in the dungeon, it would be able to be played in the background all the time. I'm not sure at the moment about it building quite as loud as it does. It was maybe an idea. If you were involved in a battle, we could add some additional instrumentation on the top, providing that all of your pieces are the same length. You can time code things and actually get them to play at the right time. We did that in Godot Getaway. We had the same sort of underlying structure and then just played different things depending on the zones of the city you were in, if you remember back then. So yeah, this whole thing is designed to sort of build up, come back down, build up again, come back down. I'm doing it over here, but build up, come back down a couple of times, and then just fade out to nearly nothing where it can start again. Excuse me. Now, the one final thing that I wanted to show you guys was a bit more of a not thought out as such, but similar to what we've been doing for the last hour or so. But I do want to say more thought out. It's not more thought out at all. It's just me, and I've called it piano. It's got nothing to do with the piano. It just started as the piano track, and this is a weird one, right? Because it's everything. It's not been arranged as the last piece was. It's been more just added to and added to and added to. It doesn't really have a beginning or a middle of an end. It's still just an idea in progress. I can't stress that enough. It's a lot to start arranging things into a full piece, but once you've got those building blocks, that's it. The final piece of arranging does take time, but it's a lot easier once you've got those building blocks to put in place. Oh yeah, Gerard, this gives me Fable original vibes. Man, Fable was such a great game. Can't remember any of the soundtrack though. I'm going to check it out after the stream. So yeah, finally I'm going to play what we could have done this evening, given a few more hours and playing around, and let's see what that sounds like. That's not the right one. Let's do pattern. Right, you ready? Here we go. There you go. That's the end of my little ditty, end of my little idea there. And again, that was lots of ideas all piled on top of one another, ready to at some point go in and maybe quantize or play around with the instrumentation. So much fun can be had. Now, this is a bit of a different stream this evening. I hope you all enjoyed it. I certainly have. Do let me know. Feedback is always useful if you enjoyed it. Completely different format, I know. Look, you can see my fingers for once. Whoa. And yeah, it took a bit of setting up and everything, but if it's something that you guys enjoy, it's certainly something we can put into a one of our regular schedule shots. Yeah, skits. I call it a skit. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks very much. I've really enjoyed it. It's as I say, it's challenging to set everything up, but I think this evening has definitely been worth it. So I'm glad you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. Right. I have been chatting away for ages. I know it was a bit talk heavy at the beginning. But yeah, music is maybe less exciting for the wider audience, but I really liked it. Yeah. I think people fear that it might be inaccessible, and it can certainly feel that way, but I believe that anybody can do music, and you just need to do simple things, right? If you try and do complex things, just like any skill, until you've built up knowledge around it, it's going to be more challenging than if you just build up slowly. There's that Potter fable, isn't there? The one that makes splits his group into two, and one focuses on a solid month-long project, and the other one focuses on or the other group focuses on lots of little objects, and they obviously come out with a better one at the end because they've iterated lots. And the same's here. And yeah, music education is definitely not great. I remember people in my class being told they can't sing, and that's got jack to do with anything, to be quite honest. So what if you can't sing? You can probably play the drums. Some percussionists are absolutely amazing. There's been one on my shorts feed recently. I can't remember his name, but he plays all sorts on a traditional drum kit, one-handed. I mean, it's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And they're just as valid a musician as someone who can play a violin or cello or whatever. It's a bit of snobbery in the music scene, definitely. But yeah, music education, I think it does leave some people behind. I think that's true of a lot of places. If maths isn't taught particularly well, or the children aren't engaged or understand why, I say children, young adolescents and adults alike, it can be very challenging to understand the why and how you're going to apply it. And if you can't grasp that, if you're not I suppose to pigeonhole someone is a bad thing anyway, but if you're not a really academic person and you're more of a practical person, perhaps, then some of the methods of teaching can be restrictive and not inclusive. But anyway, I could rant about that for a while. I probably shouldn't. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I will book another one in. I've now got to take all this apart so I can do some Blender stuff, but there we go. I wonder if you could set up a controller so you could draw with the keyboard. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks, everybody. Jan is coming back on Friday, so hopefully Monday we should be back to a usual schedule. I can't remember which one it is. Probably just a general catch-up where we are, what's coming next. And that's it for this week. And I'll see you all next week. Press it! Press it! He's not around, so I'm not going to do voices. Bye! Thanks for coming!